Ooh, it's Halloween season, and also we're back. Welcome back to the Teacup for One Movie Club Movie Marathon. My name is Matt, and I have 2 degrees, and we're back. Finally, it's been so long. I had to move, and I was doing a play, so that's why I left. For the 2 people watching, who I'm pretty sure you're my cats, so you know the story. Anyway, Eliza's here. Hello, Meowthew. It is sweet to have you back live and in person on YouTube. Eliza, it is so good to be back. My mom's here. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you, Martha. And who else is here? I don't know. We'll give it time. But anyway, welcome to the latest and greatest Teacup for One Movie Marathon. In honor of the Halloween season starting, because we all know Halloween now starts in August, we are going to be reviewing the classic Universal monster movies. I have most of them on Blu-ray in this delightful set. Now, we're not going to be able to watch all of them, obviously, because like this is a 4-week movie marathon, and there's so many monsters just on this Blu-ray cover alone. How many do we have? We have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, it continues. 9. 10. There's like 10. There's at least 10. And the movie we're reviewing tonight, it's not even in this collection. And that's because tonight we are reviewing. Okay, I'm not sure if this movie is actually considered part of the Universal Monsters lineup. And Universal gives us mixed signals on this. It is a movie that was produced by Universal. It is the movie that at least Wikipedia claims kind of kicked off the Universal Monsters franchise. However, it's not included in this definitive Universal Monsters Blu-ray set. So there is that, but at the same time, they've included this character in literally one of their Halloween Horror Nights mazes for this year called Monsters Unmasked. So I don't know, Universal, are you distancing yourself from this movie? Are you embracing it? Make a decision. But we made a decision. Tonight, we are discussing the 1923 Hunchback of Notre Dame starring Lon Chaney. So this movie literally is 100 years old. It just celebrated its 100th anniversary a few weeks ago. I think it was on September 2nd or September 8th. And it feels like a movie that's 100 years old. I think this is the oldest movie that we've ever discussed on this channel. So I'm interested to dig into it. I think a lot of us have a sense or familiarity with the story of Hunchback of Notre Dame, largely because of the Disney animated classic. But it's super different, and yet at the same time, there's a lot of similarities between this movie and Disney's. I mean, mostly aesthetic, I would say. But let's bring in our panelists and see if they agree. Starting with Alex. Oh, you were making a funny face. You're here.
Yeah, no, I'm dealing with potentially a bunch of technical difficulties. I don't know if it's on my
I'm gonna get rid of you. Bye. You'll be back. You'll be back. Go away. So Alex was here. He's dealing with stuff. I saw him making faces in the preview. I thought that was him begging to be brought in whilst making a weird face. And I just learned about Alex. He makes those faces when he thinks no one is watching. So that's funny. But anyway, let's bring in Jeanette. Look, it's Jeanette, everyone.
I can make funny faces too if you want.
Let's see one. Show us your Festival of Fools face.
Oh, I'm going to try to look like Quasimodo?
Yes. Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh.
He's licking a lot. There's a lot of licking going on.
Look, Alex, make the face again. He was making a face.
There, see? Oh,
there we go. So yeah, he can come back. He'll come back when his tech stuff is figured out. Oh, yeah. He's doing really inappropriate stuff in the waiting room right now too.
Oh,
so okay, there we go. It's funny because he's not. He's actually just staring at his computer. But anyway, welcome back, Jeanette. What have you been up to?
What have I been up to? Well, over on We Like Theme Parks, we finished our Villains League. And then somebody won King of the Castle.
It's me. I won King of the Castle on We Like Theme Parks. I was shocked.
In the midst of royalty.
Right? Until I come back and Jeanette, not Jeanette, you're Jeanette. Well, who knows? Maybe until Jeanette claims the crown for me. I meant Miriam.
Maybe. The only one I can't beat, though, is Miriam. So, as is usually the case. But yeah, other than that, life has been life. It's been great. And I'm so happy to be back. I love that you said that this movie felt like it was ancient. My daughter walked in on me watching it and she goes, "Is this from BC?" And I was like, nope, but it's pretty old. It's about 100 years old. She's like, they movie's 100 years ago. I was like, yes, exactly.
Yeah. And it's
And then
weird, like 100 years doesn't feel like that long ago, but it does watching this movie.
I know, right? I did feel what I found more interesting is that the book is about just under 100 years before that. So that wasn't even 100 years removed. And then I also loved that the movie had already been done 7 times. Like they had already had 7
Mhm.
film adapt, or this was the 7th. There were 6 before it. I'm like, how long had movies been around before 1923? And 6 other people wanted to make a movie about Hunchback. Like it had to be a really hot ticket.
Right. And like I think I read somewhere that Lon Chaney had the rights to the book, which to me is just difficult to wrap my brain around because in my head, the book was written when it takes place, which I know is far from the truth.
Same.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
know. Kind of always had that weird misconception as well.
Mhm. Yeah, but just like even the fact to put into perspective that the movie was made roughly in the same amount of time as we are from the movie as when the book was written, like that's just crazy to me. It makes the book
Yeah.
seem like it's brand new.
Yeah,
It's
and so
ridiculous.
all of that was like interesting little bits that I ran across as I was looking into this movie. So yeah,
Mhm. I'm
I'm
also
excited to
just
talk about it.
I'm excited to talk about why is it considered a monster movie for so many
Yes,
reasons. But
yes,
like
we'll
there's
get there.
yeah like on the one hand there's a lot of ableism wrapped into that, but then on the other hand, like it's not even that scary. This movie it's a melodrama, and I don't want to say it's boring.
Yeah,
It was more engaging than I thought it would be, but it's definitely not like it's not like the rest of these.
no,
I feel like there's a reason that he's not part
e-
of this cover.
exactly. And like I said, we'll get there. But that was one of my before I even watched it. Primary. Actually, when you mentioned HHN this year, when they said that was going to be one of the monsters in there, I went, "There's
Really?
a monster? Okay."
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. I
There's a
remember you even
lot
said
to
that, yeah, on the We Like Theme Parks. I was thinking it too. I was so glad someone else said it. But anyway,
Yeah.
who is your favorite monster? That's the opening question I meant to ask. I forgot.
I have to go with Dracula, though, if I'm being honest, as far as the classic films go, I prefer Nosferatu to Dracula.
Mm, a legal Dracula.
Yeah, there you go. The illegal Dracula.
Yeah. Oh, do you not know the whole thing behind Nosferatu and why that
Maybe
movie
not.
exists? So they wanted to make a movie of Dracula, and again, because these movies were made like comparatively close to when the books were written, rights were still a thing to these public domain properties as they are now. And
Uh-huh.
Bram Stoker's widow said, "No, you're not making that movie." But they were already so far along in production for the movie that they couldn't turn around and like not make it. So that's why he's called Nosferatu and not Dracula. And
Ah.
yeah, so it follows the story beats of Dracula, but it's not Dracula. And so
Huh.
that's what Nosferatu. I did a whole video about it
Oh.
years ago.
Oh my
Oh,
goodness.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
yeah, no, that's my Dracula is my favorite if we're talking about classic monsters.
Brilliant. I don't know maybe my favorite is no. I was about to say Bride of Frankenstein, but I think that's my favorite movie, but not my favorite monster.
Uh-huh.
We'll get there. I mean, speaking of monsters, let's bring in Alex. Here we go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Welcome back, Alex.
Yeah.
How have you been?
I've been okay. Today was Customer Appreciation Day at Little Caesars, so I got 3 medium pepperoni pizzas.
How were they?
I didn't eat them all. I only ate 1 and a half, and
Okay.
I did actually maybe I ate a bit more than that, and eventually you start not being able to taste anything.
You're tasting the cardboard that is Little Caesars.
Yeah, I mean it's better than the slop that is Pizza.
No, Pizza is far
but,
superior to Little Caesars. Although Jeanette will never know the joy of Pizza.
I was like, wait, is Pizza what you call Pizza Hut? Because that's
No. Oh,
No,
I love
no,
Pizza Hut.
Pizza is this like horrible.
It's this delicious Canadian brand
pizza.
which is funny because that's what Little Caesar says is Pizza.
Oh, I know, right? There is
Yeah. I mean, they're
Yeah.
trying to redeem the name pizza, which Pizza has unfortunately desecrated. But
Pizza, it's a franchise. So some locations are better than others. So we do have to give it the benefit of the doubt there.
Oh, maybe. I mean, I've yet to come across a decent slice of pizza, but anything's possible, I guess.
Yeah, no, the one on Lundy's Lane in Niagara Falls, the best pizza I've ever been to. And not just by pizza standards, by pizza standards.
When's the last time you went there, Matt?
Within the last year.
Oh, yeah? When?
Yeah. I can't remember.
Oh yeah, convenient. Okay.
Because most times I've had pizza in Niagara Falls, you've been present and you've forced Domino's upon me.
Forced is a strong word.
Peer pressured. You've peer pressured Domino's onto me.
Okay.
And now I have the loyalty points on Domino's, so like I keep going back.
That's how they get you.
Yeah, it's true. Anyway, who's your favorite monster, Alex? Is it Vlad the Impaler? I haven't put out the video yet, but Alex has some fun facts about Vlad the Impaler in the new video that's going to be on the channel eventually.
Oh, lol.
Very good.
Yeah.
Fun facts. Yeah, no, our monsters, I don't know, like are these, what's a monster? Like is
the universal monsters.
Universal monsters. Ones. So like here's a picture. So you've got the Mummy, Dracula, Frankenstein, Creature from the Black Lagoon, Wolfman,
Phantom of the Opera.
Frankenstein for sure.
Yeah, Frankenstein or Frankenstein's monster.
Well, of course.
Both. One and the same.
You can just call him Frankie for
sides of the same coin, you know.
Yeah. Benedict Cumberbatch, Johnny Lee Miller.
Yeah,
we love them all. Anyway, so welcome. I'm excited to talk Hunchback with you and excited to talk silent movies with you. So the way that this marathon actually worked is that I knew we had 4 weeks. And so I asked like 3 of our mainstays to each pick a favorite Universal monster to help program. And so this week was actually Alex's pick. So because of Alex, we all got to watch a 2-hour-long, 100-year-old silent movie. That was a fun way for me to spend my Tuesday evening and part of my Wednesday lunch break today because I couldn't sit through it all at once.
It wasn't my fault exclusively, Mr. Yipchuk. I was presented with a selection of alleged monster movies.
Yes.
And I issued my disbelief initially at Hunchback being considered a monster movie, but you assured me, Mr. Yipchuk, that it was in fact a monster movie. And so, lo and behold, imagine my surprise when I sit down to watch this monster movie, and what do I get?
No monsters.
Or a bunch of monsters.
A brilliant monster film. It's got sex. It's got violence. It's got sexual violence. It's got hunchbacks. It's got everything. It was a joy to watch. Oh my gosh. Let's get into it.
Did you even finish watching it? Didn't you start
quite
literally 2 hours ago? Amen. Okay, that checks out. Yeah. Okay. And I mean, I feel like we've kind of touched on it. This movie is a Universal monster movie, the same way that Mulan is a Disney princess. Like it shouldn't be, but they kind of say it is. And so we just have to accept it.
It's in a category because that's where it went, because that's what they had to do to categorize it. I feel like where else does it fit in the pantheon of early Universal films?
Yep. Well, I feel like we got a really good, I think, first impression from Alex, which I'm excited to dig into because I'm here for the enthusiasm, which I wasn't expecting, but I like it. I guess I'll give my first impression. I think I was so jaded at the length that it soured my first viewing, and I just didn't want to like it. But then as it went on, first off, I think it's too long. I will say that this movie could benefit from cutting probably a good half hour, if not.
There's about 15 minutes of people walking through cathedrals.
Oh, yeah. Or just cut everything to do with Phoebus, and then the movie doesn't suffer because Phoebus in this version is useless. And Phoebus, from what I gather, I think he's kind of useless except for the Disney versions.
Well, he's like kind of useless, but at the same time not. Or like, who else does Esmeralda have to play off of?
Oh, that's true. No, like I think he's useful if he's just there as a goal for Esmeralda. Like this is what I'm attracted to. It could be like a well manicured topiary or a statue or a painting, and it would be fine. He doesn't need to talk. We don't need the whole subplot with his fiance in this. Like I don't care about her.
Okay, let me ask about that. Okay, first, for any of the viewers watching that don't know, in this particular story, there's a huge romance story. So if you're comparing it to the Hunchback one, the romance story is just that. It doesn't hardly play into anything to do with the actual Hunchback. Like the romance story is kind of its own thing. It really doesn't have much to do with the actual Hunchback until the very, very, very end.
Yeah.
The two things don't really affect each other too heavily. Like he's having his problems and her and Phoebus are doing their thing. I love a cad character. I do. I just love a cad. But I will ask, did I miss the point when he called it off with his fiance from the beginning of the movie? Because all of a sudden he was at his coronation thing with Esmeralda, and the lady's literally standing right there.
It is possible that
I'm
it was lost, because I think we've like lost 15 minutes of the movie to time.
Okay, that would make a lot of sense, because
What do you
at the
mean
beginning
so the whole thing with
film.
this movie is, well, a fun thing I learned about Lon Chaney, because I started watching the movie a second time with film historian commentary, which I found way more interesting, FYI.
I'm sure it would be.
Oh yeah, because it was fascinating. But one thing that she mentioned is that Lon Chaney made like over 100 movies in his career, and only 13 of them exist now or still survive, because when talkies, I think, came into play and people stopped caring about silent films just because it was so expensive to store and maintain film, Universal burnt or destroyed.
I was gonna say they went through a huge
silent films.
Cleaning out.
Yeah.
And they never used to store them indefinitely. They used to just store them for X amount of time, and then,
And I mean, that's even why, like, we've lost really good scenes from The Wizard of Oz and other movies from even later, like the 30s into the 40s, because it cost so much to store them that they just deleted scenes or whatever. But for Hunchback, even what we saw today, every version of Hunchback of this movie that you can find now is taken from the 16 millimeter prints that I think were commercially distributed for people to watch at home who had projectors. Like the 35 original negatives don't exist, and the original broadcast prints don't exist. So we don't have the full beautiful film quality that we should have, because it was shot, I think, on 35, and what we're seeing is 16.
I would imagine that must be the case, that we lost that scene then, because at the beginning they're like, it's his fiance, and then you're like, oh, okay, cool, but he's interested in this other lady, and then all of a sudden this other girl is just not in the picture at all.
But we can fill in the blanks. We know what happened.
Yeah.
The movie does give us that like blurb of, when he brings Esmeralda to that like tavern or whatever, where it's like to Phoebus, she's just another girl, like in his arms.
Yeah.
Right.
But then at the end, we're supposed to believe that he's like,
but then
gonna kill for her. And I'm like, they just said she was just
but once he finds out that she has the protection of her dead mother, and he can't harm her apparently, then that really turns him on. He's like, oh, I've always wanted a woman.
I also feel like I missed a point or a resolution with the mom. Like I saw the point when she realized, oh, that's my daughter, who literally a second ago I wanted to kill. But then
what do you mean she dies?
Does she die?
Yeah, she immediately dies. They say "Requiescat in pace." That's the mom.
Oh, okay. Well, good for her.
She's like saying my baby, and then she stops, and then the next scene she's like laying on like a thing, and there's like
I guess I didn't know that was her. I was just like, I saw her, and then they go back to the carnage that's happening, and I'm like, I'm so good. What? Where did she go?
Yeah,
and then
she died of a broken. She preemptively died.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting plot point that didn't get enough exploration, but whatever. But overall, I think I liked this movie more than I let myself like it. There's a lot of stuff I think holds up really well, surprisingly well for me. I think the performances, well, mostly just Lon Chaney as Quasimodo, is brilliant. The scope really wowed me for the set design. Like I had to double check if it was shot on location, which I assumed it wasn't, but it was so big that I thought maybe it was. I was like, no, they wouldn't build that then. But yeah, it looks so beautiful. And the amount of extras, like I think the film commentary lady said there were almost 3,000 extras, which granted, 1923, they were getting paid and horribly and were treated horribly. So like not good for human rights, but great for spectacle.
Yeah, and I loved that even though, I mean, like Lon Chaney's obviously giving the best performance. It is very funny to see who in their acting ability is still doing silent film acting, like the way that everybody knows it to be, like kind of overacted and lots of batty eyes and lots of this and like, but then like there are a few like what's his face? The guy who was the poet.
Gorgoin. I don't know.
That Gorgoin. Him, and then also at times the guy who plays Clopin, I feel like they were doing slightly more progressive acting, and it wasn't as over there. Like it was what it needed to be because you had to read, but it didn't feel as kind of pantomime as like Esmeralda or Phoebus or the guy who eventually turns into Frollo in the animated movie. Like those people I felt like were being very over the top and very classic silent film acting. The other people almost, it seemed like maybe they knew what was coming. I don't know. Like it really felt like they were acting more normal.
Yeah, no, it's so interesting to me to look back at silent movies and to see the difference in styles, because I feel like we have this idea that it was mostly pantomime, like you said, but some of the best film performances allegedly came from that era. Because what's the movie called? Something Joan of Arc. I think it's called Passion of Joan of Arc. Whoever played Joan of Arc in this movie in like the 20s, probably made around the same time. So many people say that it's the best screen performance like ever, just because of the nuance and the subtleties and the fact that she's conveying all of the Joan of Arc story just basically through her eyes while they're in the courtroom and reading all the transgressions, etc. And so I feel like, I don't know, I think it's fascinating to see how attuned actors were to existing naturally, even though that wasn't the go-to style of the time, just when the work necessitated it. And yeah, I feel it's just interesting seeing how nuanced Lon Chaney is through all the makeup in this movie, which is another thing I wasn't prepped for, because you can read so much through it. Like, good for him. Good for Lon Chaney.
Yeah. I think history would second you and remember him.
It's true. Jeanette, what are your opening thoughts on this movie? What was your first impression?
So I enjoyed it, like you said, more than I had necessarily thought I would. Anytime I go into a silent film, or even for that matter, a black and white film, just because I am a modern person and sometimes it takes a little bit to keep my attention. Though I told you this, like after Casablanca, that was very much dispelled for me. Like I feel a lot more comfortable. So, but this would be maybe one of 3 silent films I've watched from front to end. And I liked it. Like I said, I think there's, as there is in silent films, especially when they spent that much on set design, a lot of kind of fluffy scenes of just people walking in settings. So that takes a little bit to get through. But then other than that, like it's hard for me and for you, I know, as a Disney fan, to kind of separate the two things in your mind when you're watching. It's hard to not compare. And so I was doing that a lot of the time, which was fun because there is a point of reference for me in my mind to work off of. I would be very interested to hear what somebody thought who has not seen the Disney Hunchback of Notre Dame, that is seeing this for the first time, that this is the only telling of Hunchback that they know. That would be very, very interesting to me. I will probably watch this again with the commentary that you're talking about if I can find it, because that sounds very good. I'm always more interested in the history of silent films necessarily than I am in the actual film. But yeah, I mean, any chance to watch a classic Lon Chaney performance, if you're a modern horror fan, it's paying your dues. Like you have to watch Lon Chaney performances to understand what the hell you're talking about. So I loved watching this. I did.
Yeah, it was thoroughly enjoyable. And yeah, what other Lon Chaney films have you seen?
I mean, I've seen like bits and pieces of all of the horror films that he's been in. I am at this point in my life doing that thing where you seek out like, oh, I've never actually realized, dawns on you. You're like, oh, I have never actually seen that all the way through from beginning to end. But when like the box set that you have, I had a box set from, I don't even know what the company was, but it was I'm trying to see if I can find it because it was a very good box set. It was a black and white box set of the classic horror films, but then like really like kind of one-offs from like the 40s and 50s, kind of like
nice.
Buckets of Blood and stuff. But that one is it was my first introduction to this stuff. So it was, I don't know, I will watch any of his performances, any classic horror performances in general. But yeah, I liked seeing him in this to see what everybody's talking about pretty much. Yeah. I'm looking to see, there was kind of a later in his life film that he did that was God, the man did so many freaking movies. It's
Mhm.
crazy. There were some later in life films, and I've heard some wild stuff about those. But yeah, I don't know. It's classic stuff, you know.
It is. I realized also towards the beginning of watching this that for the most part, the other silent films that I've seen all the way through, I've seen them live, like screened at film festivals or at symphonies with an orchestra accompanying them. And so for
Mhm.
me, it's always been the novelty of that's made me sit through it. And I also am really fascinated with pairing music to silent films, because you can pretty well put anything to a silent film, and in one way or another, it usually works, whether it's a direct compliment or if it's like a weird inversion. Like I used to enjoy watching the transformation scene in Metropolis with Material Girl, just because I thought that was funny. But you could just really
That's
put
not
any
really
music.
good.
Oh yeah, you can put any music to a silent film, and just fun to see how it works or doesn't work. But anyway, yeah, I watched the Lon Chaney Phantom of the Opera at a film festival in Montreal probably 10 or 11 years ago with like a full original orchestration and a live opera singer who was singing for the opera scenes, and it was so good. Anyway, I missed that. I missed watching this movie with live
Yeah,
accompaniment.
was this music the music that was
No,
like, was supposed to go with it?
it was supposed to. Someone edited it. I just don't
Yeah.
think they put much effort into it. But that's kind of the
No,
case,
but I
I
was
feel,
wondering
with a
if
lot
that
of these.
was the actual, like, at least like what it's supposed to be. It's not exactly like the best laid up with it or anything, but like if that's the score that they would have played
Actually, I'd be
with it.
interested to know what they did play, whether it was that or whether there's any record of it. I don't know, but
The end
yeah.
of the film
So
has credits, so it goes through at least who composed or whatever wrote the score and such. So that's a lead to find
yeah.
that out.
Woo, silent films. I want to go back to the discussion of this Hunchback versus the Disney Hunchback, because I feel like maybe I'm being too presumptuous here, but I feel like the Disney Hunchback is the one that all of us are the most familiar with. I mean, I don't know for sure if that's the case for Alex. I feel like it is for Jeanette.
Well, if your question is which Hunchback version am I the most familiar with at this moment in time,
yeah,
it's the silent film.
That's true. Before today,
Before
yeah.
It would have been potentially the stage version that I watched with you.
Oh, okay. But again, that's the Disney version. Kind of.
Kind of. Not really, though.
No, not
Was
really.
it was it the MGM one? Did you
No,
watch
no,
it
no.
on oh
Oh,
did you watch a
no. Oh, I
recording of the
wish. No. So, well, this is actually a good segue into what I want to talk about, which is all different Hunchback adaptations. Yeah, because I got to see the like 1 month run of the Disney stage adaptation of Hunchback of Notre Dame, which was at the Paper Mill Playhouse in Jersey in like 2015 or 2016. And it didn't go to Broadway just because it would have cost too much. I think that was the actual reason, because in addition to a regular cast, they had like a full 50-person choir that like filled out all the choral church stuff.
So good.
It was amazing. And Patrick Page of Hadestown and Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark was Frollo, and he was incredible, and just everything about it was perfect. And it like took the music from the Disney film, which is amazing, but for the most part it stuck to the beats from, I think, the book. At least everyone died at the end, so it kept like an ending closer to the original ending. But I realized while watching this that I've seen a lot more Hunchback adaptations than I thought I had, because there's the Disney version, now there's the silent movie, the stage adaptation, but then there was a stage adaptation in Edmonton that I saw done by Catalyst Theater, which is like this fun gothic type theater company. And it's just interesting to me to piece together what I think the original novel was based on what I've seen from different adaptations. And it felt like, with all the Hunchbacks that I've seen, this one felt so familiar because I think it set a foundation or a groundwork for other Hunchbacks to work from, just in terms of, I think, characterization for Quasi, but even just visually, so many of the shots to me felt reminiscent of what we saw in the Disney movie, even just like the 100 feet above shots looking down at the crowds, and just like Quasi's interaction with the gargoyles.
Even the scene you have behind us here of Esmeralda in the cathedral, that scene of her walking in by herself, I was like, oh my God, play God Help the Outcasts right now, please. I love that song.
I think like that was one of my favorite things about watching this version, was just how familiar it felt. And then realizing like, okay, they created all of these things that I think have just become so synonymous with the story for 21st century audiences, that, yeah, it's not to be discounted. So there we are. What was everyone else's experience of that? Anyone else have that experience of watching it and thinking like, oh, this feels like the Disney version, or this is where it came from, or was that just me?
It didn't feel like, for me, it was definitely familiar, but that's I think just like there are archetypes or prototypes, right? In kind of all the versions that that exist in all the versions that I've seen. So the Disney film, the stage adaptation, and this one. So it's like like all the, I don't know if you just said that, but like all the beats or whatever were there. And so, Quasimodo in this movie is arguably certainly less of a like empathetic character, or a character, or less of a, like, it's harder to empathize with Quasimodo, in the, like,
that's true. He kills a lot of people.
He kills people, and like, you just putting yourself in his shoes, it's I would say, compared to like the Disney Quasimodo, it's harder to see, to relate to that character. But the sympathetic stuff is all still there, and and it's still like, there's still a lot of like, I don't know, I want to say like humanistic elements. Like there's, when he's happy, when he's joyful, when he's swinging around, when he has these very impulsive reactions to whatever's happening. He's not like he doesn't spend a lot of time in the film. We don't see Quasimodo like contemplating too much. It's more so kind of he's confronted with something, and he kind of has an immediate emotion to it, and then a following action. So like, but that just helps us, like, there's, we believe him, and we can relate to those little moments, I guess. Like, we can relate to being happy or angry or whatever. Like it wasn't, I didn't have any moments of like, oh wow, like I remember that from this or that. But I also, compared to both of you, I think I have, I'm not too connected to the material. Like I didn't watch Hunchback, or I probably did watch it a few times when I was a child, but it's been many years since I saw the Disney film. And and then I kind of half-assedly watched the stage adaptation that one time, and etc. So it's like I didn't go into this film with like a refreshed memory of the previous adaptations, and with like expectations and whatnot. So
okay, fair. What about you, Jeanette? Did you have the same experience as me?
So there were things down to like there were things that stood out that you could tell that they took and put in the Disney movie, like little things, like the plate of food that's in front of that Phoebus offers to the other guy. The plates and the like pitchers and stuff that were there looked exactly, in the animated movie, they show a scene of his little plate with like grapes and stuff on it, and it looked just the same. It kind of like little tiny stupid stuff. That scene with Esmeralda, that stood out. I was like, they obviously lifted this and animated it. I think the thing for me, and this happens a lot when I watch what I would consider a juvenilized or condensed version of something, and then watch the blown up or natural version of it, is Disney tends to take, and they do this in movies all the time. They did this with Anne Rice's books. These are just things I know of. They condense characters into one person. Like that's totally normal, right? We know that. It was interesting how they did that, I found. And then Phoebus's character was honestly almost just completely different in the animated movie. Like he's not a himbo in the silent film. He's a himbo. Yeah. In the animated film, I don't think he is so much. He's a little broy, but he's not that bad. But
until he falls in love with Esmeralda, then he's pretty okay. But in this film,
well,
he's really.
Yeah, he's still a cat. He's still operating pretty selfishly, I think. But
what do you mean?
Who in this movie?
Yeah.
All he's going after is Esmeralda, and he's the freaking cat. He's a captain of the guard, and I don't see him direct the guard a single time.
What are you talking about? The end of the he single-handedly starts the saving of the day by jumping out of the
Sure,
gun,
and then he
rousing the
ends up in
garrison.
a room playing kissy face.
Yes,
It's
of
not
course.
like
He gets his
not
just
out
desserts.
there fighting.
He fought his way up to her. That's how he
But-
got there. He didn't just stroll in. He was on his horse and armor, and he was swinging his sword, and then he rescued her at the end, or whatever.
That's what that hair and that hat says. But I will say, like, I loved that Clopin in the movie has all these facets to him. He's a very layered character. He's a mixture of almost 2 or 3 characters in this movie. Like, there's actual Clopin who's running the Court of Miracles. There's the poet guy who is quite obviously mixed into Clopin in the animated movie because he's like the wordsy guy that tells the tales of the town. Then Frollo is a combination of 2 people. Like, obviously the priest in this one is a nice, kind, sweet priest.
Yeah, he's the priest.
That's the thing. This movie though, this movie is the one that did like it split. Basically was like movies are too scared to conquer Frollo the way that he was written. Because the Disney movie I think is closer. Minus the fact that he's a judge, and he's supposed to be a priest. But basically, So to that point, I was going to get there. The animated film is more historically accurate, I feel, than the black and white film. Interestingly enough, even though you would think that the more historically accurate one would be A, not the Disney one, but B, closer to the time that the actual time or even the book was written, whatever. I thought they just kind of, in these old movies, they didn't do a lot of research. Like, let's make sure it's historically accurate. But like the judge would have been that person in those times, right? So I think that's why they made that call. Now, granted, the archdeacon's at the beginning of the animated movie, and he is a nice, sweet, kind soul. So they kind of put the 2, because Frollo in this one is not, he's not the head of the church, is he? Because the archdeacon is. Is he? Okay. And then Jayon is his brother.
Yeah. So like,
Jayon is
and so they combine those 2 to make one in the animated movie. So, and then Esmeralda's mom is like completely out. The whole story of how she was found, completely different. Like how she is where she is completely different. But all the characters are there. And for the most part, their personalities are essentially the same. Another thing they found that I loved, because I loved the character in the animated movie, Djali, the goat. And then in this movie, they actually make a little thing. They're like, Esmeralda's standing with the goat. They're like,
look at that pretty goat.
Like, oh my God, it's the goat. And then I love that they do show him swinging on the gargoyles, and that then later Disney takes that and goes, well, we need comic relief. What do we do? Well, his only friends are these gargoyles that are on the top of the thing. And I'm like, brilliant. Like, all the things that they did create to juvenilize it made sense. They weren't just shoehorned in. And now that I've seen this movie, it really makes me appreciate that they didn't just shoehorn in anything. I don't think they added anything to that animated movie that I didn't see represented here. Now, obviously, Quasimodo doesn't die at the end of the animated movie. And I didn't see that coming. And I was very sad in this movie.
Oh, really?
I didn't know he died. I was like, oh no.
Do you know how the original ends?
No, don't tell me. I'm going to read the book now, because after watching the black and white film, I'm going to read the book. I'm like excited about it now. But in black and white movies, it's always very hard for me to see if people are bloody. I can't tell. So he's sitting there, and all of a sudden
there's any blood in this, is there?
Well, he grabs himself.
He holds himself.
And I'm looking, and then I'm like, is he dying? He's not dying. What happened? Why is he dying?
That happened a couple times.
I'm like, oh no. And then he pulls the thing. I'm like, oh, he's not dead. He's just tired. And then he dies.
He's ringing his own death toll. That's the thing. He's like, God. I'm the one who's dying now. Ding dong.
And then
Paris, I'm dying.
Sanctuary.
Stupid Phoebus and Esmeralda just running off into the sunset together as he dies made me so sad.
At least Esmeralda got to live in this one.
Yeah.
She doesn't die in the animated one.
It's one of the only ones where she doesn't.
Oh, well, that sucks.
There's so much I want to unpack here. Oh, where do I want to start? Well, I guess one thing.
Make sure we do kind of discuss a little bit like I know you commented on it, but I'd love to hear a bit more about like what you know about the set design, how much was on location, if anything, and
it was all on location.
Yeah, that's what I assumed, and like the getting like the different shots where you have like the far out when he's like climbing down the cathedral and stuff, like what they would have done. Like, did they have cranes at the time? Did they have?
I think well, all I really have to go off of is that one film historian's commentary that I watched like an hour or two before this. She was saying that it sounded like it was all shot on the Universal lot, presumably in California. So it was all built like the full scale replica, or the mostly, I think, scale replica of Notre Dame. I know that they built like the 35 statues of whatever those saints, presumably. The shot, like the crowd shots, she said were shot from 100 feet above. I don't know what the structure was, but like it was 100 feet up. And Lon Chaney did most of his own stunts, so he did have a double, presumably for the more complex stuff like scaling, whatever. I think might have been a double for that shot near the end when like he's climbing down the rope down what looks like probably a 50-foot drop or so.
What safety precautions do we suspect were in
None.
place?
None.
They didn't have to do
isn't that crazy?
Alex, have you ever fallen down the rabbit hole of reading what they like subjected people to when they made movies at this time?
Or like
it is.
All those extras that died. Was it wasn't the Ten Commandments? It was some other biblical
it was
film.
Like a Noah's Ark movie.
In the silent film era, all those extras drowned to death, just died.
Yeah, there was a big flood scene for Noah's Ark, and a bunch of them either drowned or got pneumonia and died. It was like, I'll send you articles.
That's fascinating.
It's fascinating.
That's fascinating.
It's wild what they did and didn't have to do back then.
Oh, that's why like the scope and the scale of movies from the 20s through to like probably the 30s, 40s, maybe even early 50s, it's unlike anything that we see now because they had no regard for safety. Oh, like the Ben-Hur scene, the chariot scene, I think is another one, which I've never seen. But my understanding of that is like, you couldn't do that now. And someone died. Actually, I think someone literally dies on screen. They had to keep the shot in the movie because it was the only one they had. They had to get permission from the family.
It's the same with all those extras in the flood. Like you're watching them die in the movie.
Yeah.
That is incredible stuff.
It is. Oh, like silent film times were crazy. Like Cecil B. DeMille built Egypt in a desert for his first Cleopatra movie. Not the one with Elizabeth Taylor. That was a remake of his movie from almost the same era. It was probably like 25 or so, I'm just guessing. But it was so expensive that the studio wouldn't pay to get rid of it. So he literally just buried it. So there's an entire full scale, well, not full, but there's an entire replica city of Egypt buried in the desert somewhere in California that somebody only found in like the 90s. And it's there and it's still buried.
They should why haven't people?
Because like no one's willing to like put the money forth to do that.
That's
I
crazy.
would go though.
Burning Man, but they don't have dig up.
I know they don't have dig up the Egypt. So yeah, that's a thing that apparently exists that I want to visit, but no, they haven't even capitalized on it in terms of tourism, which I think is a major missed opportunity.
Yeah,
I would go.
Yeah, Little Egypt.
Yeah,
Little Paris.
Exactly, Little Egypt. So back to Hunchback. One thing that I have a renewed respect for with the Disney movie are the gargoyles. Because for the longest time, Billy Joel, for the longest time, I thought that was just Disney shoehorning in fun comedic relief, which to some degree I think it was. But I've also recently found out that, and this has kind of, I don't know, it's made me sad in some ways, because seemingly Victor Hugo only wrote Hunchback as a propaganda piece to save Notre Dame from being renovated and losing all of its Gothic beauty, because he didn't so much care about telling a story about humanity and what people are like and society, etc. All the beautiful things I think Hunchback is about. It was really him just wanting to get people really emotionally attached to the Notre Dame Cathedral so that they wouldn't change it, because he loved Gothic architecture and the history that was steeped in it. So I feel like his motive was, let me write something that really builds up this gorgeous building. And I think there are 2 chapters minimum in the book that are just describing the cathedral. And yeah, so that's why the gargoyles to me are interesting in the Disney movie, because it's literally like a piece of the Gothic architecture coming to life. And this movie to me reminded me of kind of a, I guess not a problem, but an interesting thing that I've noticed when I've seen Hunchback adaptations outside of the Disney one, which is that Quasimodo isn't really the main character, which we've kind of touched on. Like he's very much, I feel, a
Yeah.
supporting character.
Yes, I
And
was gonna
yeah,
say that. I'm glad you
yeah.
did, because I was like,
Oh,
can
yeah.
we just talk about how he's
Like,
like
he's hardly
the
there.
main character?
And actually, the adaptation I saw in Edmonton, I think it was just called Hunchback. One of the big complaints that one of my classmates had when we saw it was he was like, this shouldn't have been called Hunchback. It should have been called Notre Dame, because he's like hardly there, or Esmeralda. But yeah, it is so much like the main character is the cathedral, and it's not about the people, it's about the building. What are everyone's thoughts on that?
I guess I like, part of me disagrees in the sense that like I definitely acknowledge there's no question that like the screen time and whatnot of Quasimodo is, you know, comparatively, like it's small, it's less than let's say Esmeralda and other scenes. But on the other hand, like the story, it's the Hunchback of Notre Dame, right? So I definitely like, I'm all about, I appreciated the like shots of the cathedral and stuff like that. Like I also really love that architecture. And just like not necessarily even Gothic. I do love Gothic architecture like styles, but I also just love cathedrals and religious buildings of like all kinds of cultures. So it's they all, a lot of them tend to be somewhat, if not grandiose, just visually interesting and distinct and stunning to an extent. But yeah, like the story does, like the Hunchback is central, right, in a lot of ways, and everything kind of comes together with him, and he adds like dimensions to what's happening. So like it's not just Esmeralda, like kind of what you were saying earlier, Jeanette, in terms of like, you know, how there's this like how the love story between Phoebus and Esmeralda doesn't necessarily relate too much with like Quasimodo, but it does add this, like there is in this film, it's subtle, right? But there's in the Disney film, it's much more expansive, where this sort of the feelings between Esmeralda and Quasimodo, specifically Quasimodo's feelings for Esmeralda. But this film still does that, right? It's just it's a lot, it's kind of subtler and you know, yeah, just in a kind of lower at a lower frequency, let's say. But
I guess I would. Yeah. Oh, sorry to interrupt. I think I would want to focus the question. A better way, I think, to articulate what I want to investigate is what for you personally. By you, I mean all of you, not just you, Alex, but also you, Jeanette, or anyone watching. Apparently, there's 8 of you. For you, what's the most engaging or like emotionally pertinent part of the story that you think is worth examining, or that speaks the most to you if you watch either this movie or the Disney movie or any other adaptation?
So I'll say in pertaining to what Alex just said about the relationship of Quasimodo and Esmeralda, I think in the movie, in the movie, they're both movies. In the animated movie, there's definitely more of a hint of romantic love on both parts, I feel. And even when I was a kid, and I thought maybe I'd see it differently now, but I watched it recently and I was like, no, I don't. At the end of that movie, Quasimodo doesn't die. So you're left with this like, so how do I feel about the fact that you like chose Phoebus over him? Like, I am conflicted about that. Whereas in this movie, I don't think there's any romantic love on either of Quasimodo or Esmeralda's parts. I think Quasimodo adores her like a guardian angel, like someone who loves and takes care of him, because really nobody other than the Archdeacon ever has. And it's a very obvious romantic love with Phoebus. So that's very easy for me to mitigate in my mind. Even if Quasimodo had lived, I'd be like, no, obviously you were romantically inclined. And I think you're supposed to come away with that at the end, that like Quasimodo is just being loved and taken care of and accepted now in the animated movie. But I am still left in that one, like very kind of upset with Esmeralda. I'm like, I was really in your corner the whole time, and now you're with that guy? And
it's very Phantom of the Opera.
It is.
Like, why is she going with Raoul?
When we do that sort of thing, I I think it's an interesting thing to look at because I never know whether to view it as a commentary on women from the author or director or whatever you want to screenplay, whatever, or if it's a commentary on humanity, in that you will love whoever shows you like you will love anyone who shows you kindness if you have never been shown kindness. And in Phoebus's part, you will take love because you know it's being like you're always going to take the love. Like that's how it is. So I find if it's a comment on women, like, hey, no matter, what happens, you're gonna go with the cool guy. Like it can kind of come off that way. I don't think that's the intention. Yeah. It could come off that way, but I think that that's one of the things that interests me, and in future iterations that I may watch, is how that dynamic of relationship plays out, because it is the story essentially. Yeah, like no totally matter which version.
On that note, I mean, this is, I think, why I like the Disney musical version so much, that I was lucky enough to see that so few others will get to. Minus there are slime tutorials, so I recommend everyone watch it. But what stands out to me as my favorite thing about that adaptation, that I think told myself probably came from the book, but now I think it was more just the people reworking it for Disney, is that it totally digs into like the three male characters projecting onto Esmeralda what they want her to be for them. Like there's this amazing song that I love that introduces her in the musical, where it's the scene basically where she's dancing in the Festival of Fools, and then it goes all slow motion, and then Quasi, Phoebus, and Frollo are just all watching her, and like they're all instantly falling in love with her in their own ways. Yeah. And you're seeing, like, for Quasi it's a very pure love. For Frollo, he's like sexually infatuated with her, and he's like, this is complicated for me because I'm a priest, I shouldn't be feeling this, which is another fascinating route that the Disney musical shockingly doesn't totally shy away from. Another reason that it's the best version, in my opinion. And then Phoebus is just kind of caught in between because he's
normal love.
He's
like, like everyday love.
Yeah, but then I like how in that like after that moment, the three of them trying to get her in their own ways leads to literally all of Paris burning, because everyone is just throwing what they want onto this one person, this one woman, which I think is fascinating.
To that point too, in the black and white one, I found it very interesting that part of that possessive nature that I think Frollo has in the animated one was very much in Clopin, because he was supposed to be her father figure. And the possessive nature part was very interesting to me, because it comes from, that's all coming from one location. In the other iteration I've seen, there's only 2 pulls on her, and in this one there's 3. Technically, and there's 3 in the animated one, but like not 3 that she's drawn to, or like she's even thinking about going to the church at the end, towards the end, right, or like into the middle rather, and being a part of the church. Now that's not being with Frollo or whatever his name is in this one, but it is going in a different direction. So I do find it interesting that possessive nature is coming from a different character, and it does affect the story in a totally different way. I don't feel like the whole church thing is as big of a deal in the black and white one until you get to like them like interrogating her. But other than that, I don't feel like religion plays as huge of a role as it does in the animated one. I don't feel like it's as pronounced. There are these church figures, and it all takes place in a church, but I don't feel like there's nearly as much like moral implication onto Esmeralda like there is from coming from Frollo in the animated one.
Yeah, absolutely. And that kind of segues into the other thing I wanted to discuss, which is the whole issue of Frollo not being a priest, or basically not even being a character in this one, because they shift all of his actions onto the brother, who's like not a man of the cloth, that for like very, I think, obvious reasons. For when this movie was made, they didn't want to portray a Catholic priest on screen as being as creepy and horrible as he is in the book. But that's kind of
because we didn't all know what we know now.
Well, I feel like even now, I think, again, this is going back to why I love the Disney musical adaptation. It's the first major adaptation, I think, of Hunchback where they've let Frollo be a priest. And I think that just makes more sense, or not makes more sense. It makes the story significantly more interesting. Like the animated one, you can basically, like, you can have the same movie play out and tell yourself he's a priest, not a judge, and it's fine, and it kind of works.
But well, he's both. But again, that's historically accurate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but what are everyone's thoughts on this historical tendency to change who Frollo is? Do you think it affects the story in a way that like diminishes it? Do you think it matters? What are the thoughts?
Well, like I said, I think that the religious tones and the moral implications of like, oh, what she's doing is wrong. The only one telling her that is her witch mother, like creepy lady down there. Like that's not a huge part of this. I don't think we're ever supposed to think she's like a harlot or a whirling dervish or whatever. Like I don't think we're ever supposed to think that she's like this like ne'er-do-well necessarily. She's part of this of the people that the city looked down upon, but like I don't think we're supposed to feel that way in the black and white one about her. I never got that vibe from them. So I think when you take that Frollo that we're thinking about, the religious implications and the judge and the priest and all specifically the priest, when you take that out, you do remove that element of like, I don't feel like the church is searching for her. I don't feel like they're trying to persecute her until they think she stabbed somebody, or somebody tells them that she stabbed somebody. But that's Frollo's character in the black and white one doing that, but not as a priest. So again, now the implications are not there. So I do think you remove an element that adds a lot to the emotions and the story when you don't present him that way.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like it's at the very least, it's another like interesting like aspect of history and human, like nature of this sort of idea of there's this class of people who are actively being persecuted, and slash are othered from society, like, gypsies, and they're, this movie doesn't really like at most it does have a lot of characters, and it does like with the witch mother kind of cursing her, and the like there is a character called like introduced as the queen of gypsies and whatnot. So like there is this, it's possible that audiences at the time would have like been predisposed to be judgmental without any extra, exposition from the film. But yeah, it doesn't really explore that at all compared to the Disney film. But yeah, otherwise I don't have any, my engagement with that question of like Frollo's characterization and compared to the book, like I have no context for that save for what you say, Matt. So like if I kind of take your word and say, the musical adaptation is kind of potentially the most accurate.
I don't think it's the most accurate. I think it's the most effective, just to clarify.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, so what it comes down to is like, I think as a concept of like, okay, the original source material has this character as this character of a priest who is lustful, and kind of has this ambivalence of like, I'm a religious person of the cloth and have all these principles and values, and also I have these totally contradictory values of being possessive, lustful, etc. Like, I want to say that the Disney film basically does. It's kind of like what you said. Like, if you just close your eyes and pretend he's a priest.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty sure when I was a kid watching it, I just thought he was a priest. Like, I don't think or like it was effectively the same thing. I saw him because, from what I remember, again, I must have seen the film like over 15 years ago or something now. Like I feel like he lives, if like, does he not like basically stay at the cathedral? Like
he does.
Yeah.
And he is some form of clergy.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what he's because there's an archdeacon there, but the archdeacon even says, let him stay here with you in the cathedral. And so he's there.
No, Frollo says that to the deacon. Frollo says,
he says, let him stay here with you. But Frollo is there. He's living in there.
I think the agreement he makes in the Disney movie is let him stay here, but like, I'll look after him. Like I'll check up, but he lives here. Because I think Disney tried to draw a very strict line in the sand to just like, if under oath in a court, they could say,
He's
our
not a
Frollo
priest.
is not. He has no religious connection. He's just a
And
judge.
it's funny
because it's
I
easier
very
to
much
accept
thought
a
he was
judge.
too.
Oh, I think
Yeah.
that's by design as well.
Yeah.
I think they designed that character so that he is Priest Frollo just in everything but title and costume. But I don't know, I feel like making him a priest, as was seemingly Victor Hugo's intention, like, speaking like I've read the book, but I haven't, full disclosure, I think it makes the character a lot more interesting and more human in some ways. Because I feel Frollo is such a despicable character. It's easy for him to be very one note and very like silent movie villain, which is what I think he comes across as in this movie, or at least Jeon does. And in the Disney movie, for the most part, I think he's very one note. But if you again look at the Disney musical adaptation, like, he starts out as a relatively good person who is just very dedicated to the church, and then he's corrupted
by Esmeralda's.
Well, basically, yeah, it's kind of, it's similar to Angelo in Measure for Measure, where he's trying to live his life by a very rigid system of what he feels is good, right, and like will get him into heaven. But then when he has like very human urges and he's like, oh, lust, whatever, then that just makes him call into question everything he believes about himself and about like the world. And then it causes him to like project onto Esmeralda, or in Measure for Measure, Isabella, saying like, oh, well, clearly she's the problem, not me. She's evil, so therefore I must persecute her. And I think that's a much more interesting story, especially if you put it up against Quasimodo, who is seemingly a sympathetic character, but then is kind of driven to do horrible things because of the circumstances, which I think we see in this movie more so than the Disney one.
In the black and white, we all said something about that earlier. I understand he kills some people in this one, but I'm like, I don't really think he's like, again, coming back to the monster thing, I'm like, is he killing people or is he defending himself?
He actually, that's a funny scene when he drops that log on them.
He's defending himself. Like, duh. If somebody's breaking in my house and I could drop a log on them, I certainly would.
But would you melt them? Would you literally melt them?
If you're breaking in my house and you have weapons in your hands and I could drop molten lead on you, yeah, I probably would. Like, he's protecting himself and Esmeralda the whole time. I'm like, he really hasn't hurt anybody. The only thing that I found weird about like his character that isn't in the animated one that I didn't jive with right away was at the beginning when he's like jeering at them and spitting on them. I was like, but like, you feel like he's been treated that way, so he's hurt people, and like that was fine and I got it, but at the same time I was like, again, like Alex said, like, I'd like to feel empathetic to this guy right now. That'd be great. But then by the end, I'm like, yeah, they're trying to kill you. You should kill them. Like,
I don't.
What's he gonna do? Go hide in the bell? He's not gonna. What's he gonna do?
It wasn't clear that the poor people of Paris were trying to kill them, as much as trying to save Esmeralda from, whatever.
How does he know? He's hundreds of feet in the air. He just sees him trying to break in his house.
And he's deaf, right, and half blind, so he probably doesn't know a lot. but anyway, that's I with Quasimodo's character, I was like, yeah, well, I mean, I'm empathetic, I guess, but like they give the way you said Frollo was like not a bad guy in this other iteration. I'm like, so how do you like not like him by the end? I don't know.
Oh, because Frollo still does horrible things. You just kind of see how he turns into that, which like I still despise Frollo, but I think he's a far more interesting character if you see how he becomes that instead of him just being that from the beginning. Like, here I am, evil churchman, ready to abuse my power.
I think in the 90s we're all ready to be like, yeah, no, there's that character. Yeah, we're on board. Like, I think everybody, like Alex said about the exposition for the ne'er-do-wells, that, like maybe he's right. Like maybe back then people were still dispositioned to just be like, oh, look, those are the dirty people and those are the clean people and I don't like them. But like, and then in the 90s you have an iteration of Hunchback and they're like, yeah, this guy's in the church and he's a judge. I wonder how bad he is. Like, he's probably really bad. So like, we don't need to tell you that he's really bad. We'll just let him be bad from the beginning.
So let's dig into the question then that Disney poses in The Bells of Notre Dame. who is the monster and who is the man? Or, as it's rewritten for my favorite adaptation, what makes a monster and what makes a man? So, I mean, obviously, it's billed as a monster movie, and does it deserve that reputation? I think that's a thing worth discussing. Because I'm kind of torn between how, I'm torn between how Jeanette feels, because I think instinctively I'm like, yeah, defend your place. But on the other hand, I'm still thinking about how terrifying it would be if I had molten lead poured on me while I was trying to.
Yeah, but it'd be terrifying if molten lead was poured on you by Julia Roberts.
Oh, for sure. Then Julia Roberts. Then Julia Roberts would be the monster. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So how much of a monster do we think he is in this version? There's the things that he does, but I also can see how this movie could have paved the way for future Universal monsters, just purely in terms of aesthetics, like in terms of what the makeup design looked like, but also if you look at how he was shot, like the low angle, the harsh shadows, like there are things visually that I feel came back in subsequent Universal monster films that kind of created a visual language for how to portray a character as being visually intimidating or monstrous, whether or not the story itself is lending to that. But what are our thoughts here?
It's interesting because, one, Quasimodo in this film is rarely, from my perspective, intimidating. Like he's a small, like I don't know if the actor was small, but the way the physicality of the actor, right, was very low to the ground. So we see at the start we don't necessarily clue into that, because we see him isolated at the top of the cathedral. But so that's one thing. The shots where he's with other people, he's almost always lower than them. So that's an interesting kind of that works against him coming off as especially like monstrous intimidation wise. It still plays into the to use the words of the film, like freak of nature, whatever. Like it makes him this lowly character, where we understand that dynamic and relationship between him and other people. But the other thing is the movie also straight up, like something that I clocked right at the beginning, is like it just shows us, like the movie gives us a lot of shots of just like, whether it's close up or not, just focusing on Quasimodo and his expressions and what he's doing. So it's not really treating him as this like there's no revelation, there's no reveal of like, here's the monster.
He's not coming from behind corners. He's not coming over walls. He's not coming out of shadows.
Yeah, right. There. So it's like it's very much just giving us Quasimodo and showing us what Quasimodo is doing most of the time. And so it's interesting because it's like, it makes me feel like the movie's not necessarily like, I'm wondering if the thought was like, I don't know the context of when this movie was made and what else was going on in other films, but I wonder if one of the ideas might have been audiences have never just been shown this kind of makeup and grotesqueness, if you will, flat out in the light of day. Maybe this will be shocking. But it didn't feel that way. Like for me, right? To me, it was just like, oh, you just want me to like it almost like immediately normalized Quasimodo like as a phenomenon. I was just like, oh, okay, this is just the local neighborhood hunchback, jeering and spitting on us. Like this is just another day in Paris, right? Like I think the closest it gets to showing him as a monster is in the context of the society that he was in treated him as this abomination, and in that way he was a monster. But he neither committed monstrosity, say for crushing those people's abdomens and legs by chucking a giant battering ram.
He also melted them
and then melting them. But
people should have been minding their own damn business.
But that's what my thoughts
are. So I'll restate here. I think that the fact that that they called it a monster movie then, maybe not so offensive, but now I do have a huge problem with Universal still modernly calling this a horror. I mean, not a horror movie, a monster movie. he is just a person that is born with deformities or had those things done to him, whichever course of action happened. So, and like Alex just said, he does not perform any monstrosities. He defends himself. He kills some people in defending himself. Even that, he didn't go to them and like do things to them. Like he didn't mangle them or anything.
He was cheering a lot though. He seemed pretty happy when every time he crushed them and melted them. He seemed pretty excited.
Well, so was Esmeralda. She was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna get free." So, but I do like, I understand at the time when you only had 2 or 3 actual monster movies in existence ever, to people back then who in 1923, if they had seen a man walking down the street that looked like that, would have called him a monster. That's disgusting, but it is true. Like, people in that time period, just 100 years ago, would have openly called him a monster and probably spit on him and done things that they did in this movie. So that is not very far-fetched. I think maybe past the 70s, 80s, we could have stopped calling this particular Hunchback a monster. If there is one where he acts like a monster, fine. But this Universal movie, he doesn't act like a monster. And it really kind of rubs me sideways that they still refer to it that way, because you can easily take it off of a list and just say, it's a classic Universal film.
Oh, you could. And I feel like it's so meta, because after having seen the movie now and having done the like limited Wikipedia research I've done on the movie, I almost like, I could be totally wrong. I don't think it was billed as a Universal monster movie when it came out, or a monster movie. I think Lon Chaney just really wanted to make a film of Hunchback. Well, not even think. It's a fact. He wanted to make a movie of Hunchback. He secured the rights. And also he grew up with 2 deaf parents. So his mom and his dad were both deaf, and he grew up like in the deaf community, and he learned to communicate largely through pantomime and through sign language, which is apparently why he's like such a good silent film actor and why this character spoke so much to him. So I do think that this movie was made with a lot of empathy for the character and for the story that still holds up today. But it's more like we've just, and by we, I mean society, we've imposed the monster title onto it. And I think when the like actual monster, like when these started getting made in the 30s and 40s, maybe it was a marketing tool. Maybe it was, who's to say what it was?
I think it's what sells it now. I think the movie would have been forgotten if Universal didn't include it in this grouping. And I get that. But like in something as modern as like this year's Halloween Horror Nights.
Yeah, why is he in that house?
When you already had 3 monsters in that house, you didn't need a 4th one. We didn't need to include a man who's just like slightly deformed and like living in a thing. Because I think that's all he does in that one, is he just jumps above you and there's
he pours the lead on you. He pours the lead on you.
Oh, does he?
Yes.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Oh, sorry, spoilers.
A log on.
I'd like some water effects or something. Like,
yeah.
Is there?
Or I don't know for sure. I was watching a walkthrough and like the Hunchback said something like, "I'm going to pour lead on you," and I think he has like a cauldron. I think he has a cauldron that he does.
Watch out down below! Okay. Gonna pour some lead on you.
Except, well, I was about to say, how is it any different from the Phantom of the Opera? But Eric does lots of terrible things.
He drops.
He's like malicious.
Yeah.
he's actually, and he's the freaking lunatic. Like he's actually crazy, and he does monster things, like living in a cave. He's living in a freaking catacomb.
I mean, there are so many similarities, though. I think between Quasimodo and Eric Phantom, because at least in the original book, Eric is born the way he is. I think in other adaptations, and I think even in the later Universal one, it's like acid or something. It's acid that's thrown onto his face. Yeah, or burns. But source material. Oh yeah,
hit on a woman and she threw acid in his face.
Well, actually, no one opted to watch it for the marathon, but in the version that's in here,
well, I would have
it's too late. We're here now. In this movie, he's a composer, and then like his music is stolen. And then when he confronts somebody about it, the assistant of that guy like throws acid into his face to like ward him off, and then that's how he becomes the Phantom. Then he
the one with Tywin Lannister?
No, that's no, this is long before. This is Claude Rains, who's also the Invisible Man. Yeah, but Lon Chaney also played the Phantom of the Opera, so that's fun. Different movie. But yeah, like it's interesting because I feel like they have similar starting points but their life choices are just very different. And I think the Phantom is an example of how a character like Quasimodo could be a legit monster through his actions, as opposed to what he is. Just
it's also
someone minding his business.
This movie starts, I believe, at the beginning of the movie. It also does describe that, I believe, that the church takes in Quasimodo. So that is something where it's like, as far as we know, the Phantom never necessarily had that opportunity. Like, who's to say that had Eric been taken in by anybody post deformity, if he would have made better life choices?
Well, and I think we're supposed to believe too that the Phantom was a narcissistic and like self-absorbed person, aren't we? That he was kind of already
alone,
a little bit of a monstrous person, wasn't
well,
he?
It's
already,
kind of
like,
it's implied
this?
that he becomes that just from society shunning him. Like, this is one of the few books I've read in my life, Phantom of the Opera. Yes, I read it in grade 10. I was very proud of myself. I felt smart. There's one line that I remember.
Classics.
Oh, well, the book's not it wasn't that good. Or it was, But one thing I do remember from the book is there was a line that said if Eric was a conventionally handsome person, he would have been the most famous man in the world because of his talent. And like, it's all based in
he's supposed to be this musical genius, if you will.
He's exactly. And he just it's a similar thing.
Like
he's like an inventor, and I think it's even implied that he's an architect and he like helped build the opera house somehow, and then like that's why he has all of his chambers. He also has a horse that lives with him for some reason to take Christine.
Horse master.
Exactly. But I wish we were watching Phantom now, but we watched Hunchback, so here we are. Anything else people want to say about this movie?
So the only other thing I'll say, while we were touching on like the affections to Esmeralda, I do not think it is an intended part of any iteration. But again, if I'm gonna throw in my little token of female observation here, the story of her and the drawing on her from the different ways, and the fact that the overarching story, from a female perspective anyway, I think specifically in this one too, like the black and white version, is that this woman is just living, and literally from the time she is a baby, men's wants and needs are she's stolen by a man, right? Like, into this group, and then men's wants and needs are what dictate her life in this film. Like, she's not doing much of anything. She's just like, oh, that guy's just existing. That guy's pretty cute. Other than that, it's like, and so I just think that this whole story and this whole idea of like trying to be your own person as a woman, when wants and needs, not just specifically of men, but of people, and expectations and what do I want to say, blame. Like we were talking about, like, oh, well, Esmeralda's dancing influences that, and then her dancing influenced Phoebus in this one. And, even Quasimodo, like, loves her for what she can do for him. You know what I mean? So, that's just as a female perspective, this whole idea of, like, what you are doing in your life is then blamed for what somebody else either feels they have to do or whatever. And that could be a human perspective too, but just specifically in this with Esmeralda, it comes across as this very, like, even if you're just being your own person, it can be construed and contrived for other people's means or wants.
Yeah, this movie definitely, like, it's of its time as well, but definitely, like, is a I would agree, like, it's a showcase of, like, traditional perspectives of women. and
I think on that note, it's interesting to me that I feel every Hunchback adaptation that I've seen, they always keep the Esmeralda dance scene, which is really not that crucial plot wise. Like, you could introduce her any way you so choose, but I don't know, I think it's telling as to how pertinent it is, that it's important to introduce her in a capacity where she's kind of on display doing something that is kind of just for her, but at the same time objectifies her.
It's something that can be misconstrued as lustful.
Yeah.
If you are the person who views it through that lens, like, or as attention grabbing, or, what any other number of words that people like to use for people who are just living their lives.
Yeah, I mean, I would argue that, like, from my perspective at least, it like, well, two things. One, there is a question of if Esmeralda isn't like, there is the question of how do you introduce Esmeralda? What is Esmeralda's relationship to her surrounding people and whatnot, right? So like, so dancing.
She could like be doing a magic show. She could be singing,
sure,
or running her own stall in the market.
Yeah, so
I
don't know enough about like the historical context or the source material or whatever, right? So it's like there are you can certainly imagine there are certain cultures and situations where there is a limited number of things that somebody could be known for or whatever, can engage with the whole of their community by doing. And dancing is just a convenient way in that regard. Like we can easily buy into a culture, like being totally ignorant of Romani culture and tradition, we can buy into, she's famous for being a dancer and for dancing for her community, right? Like we can buy into that, I think. And then on top of that, I would say that like it is like it's two factors, right? Like one, there are a lot of things that women have done historically that I would assume were informed by women's position historically, and what I mean by that is to say that I think women rarely were just living their lives, right? Like they were they were
historically,
society. And so most of what they were doing, especially public facing things, would have in some sense, on some level, been for the benefit of men and the male gaze, etc. So it's like, that's the other thing to it. So it's not to say that she was asking for it, but
no, it's historically accurate. Yeah. It does. It's still, and maybe even more so, shows that narrative because it's like that's just how it was, right?
Yeah. But yeah, like I do think there is something interesting with like this movie. To my eye, it did show there were I think at least two scenes that show that where Quasimodo is with Esmeralda alone, and then one is the end where he's just saved her, basically killed Jehan, and then Phoebus comes in. But there's a scene earlier where it's the scene where he's walking by and he just notices, he comes upon Phoebus and Esmeralda, and he has this immediate like, oh look, Esmeralda, but then Phoebus kind of pulls her closer, goes on the other side type thing, and then he kind of has this sad look on his face. That's the way I interpreted it. And then he goes on with his tasks. So the movie does kind of, it doesn't necessarily go in the direction of like lust for Quasimodo, like romantic connection, but it does say something, I think, to this level of like Quasimodo is very grateful and has this angel in his life.
And he's going to take her away.
Yeah, and Phoebus is this
exactly.
Phoebus is this
where even though it's not malicious, he does still want to possess her for the things that she has done for him.
Yeah,
not for really much of any other reason. Just you're going to take care of me. You know?
Yeah, which isn't at least isn't an unrelatable position, right? Like, yeah.
Oh, there's so much to discuss with Hunchback. I just want to do a Hunchback month now. Watch all the Hunchbacks. Mostly because I just want to talk about the musical because I love it so much.
Oh, yeah. Can we just listen to the soundtrack?
Yes. Men of Perry before we get old. That's Rhythm
that
of the
one.
Tambourine.
I'm thinking of
no. No, not that one. Not that one. Of Notre Dame. So anyway, today's game, because we're moving on to the game, is inspired by the Hunchback musical that I love so much.
Oh gosh.
Interesting. Yes, I thought it was just gonna be all the names.
Oh, that would have been fun and easier, but no. So there are two major musicals, I feel, based on works by Victor Hugo. One of them is the Disney Hunchback of Notre Dame. The other one is Les Miserables, also known as Les Mis. So,
yay, one I've never seen.
Oh, good. You'll be great at this game. So what we're going to do is...
You've never seen Les Miserables?
I have no interest. None.
I am a fan of that, Jeanette. I respect and appreciate that.
Never gonna watch or read that.
I love Les Mis.
I want you to watch them to see your opinion, but I respect and appreciate that you have not as of yet.
A bald Anne Hathaway was never a thing I wanted.
Oh, you don't have to
really.
watch the movie. You can. There's like the.
No, there's
concert,
multiple staged concerts.
Oh, I know.
With Lea Salonga, we love her. Disney.
Uh,
She's Eponine. It's great. So I'm going to put on screen a lyric from either the Hunchback musical or Les Mis. You have to tell me which musical it's from for 1 point.
All right.
So it's like a 50-50 chance. But if you want a bonus point, I've eliminated one word or one phrase from the lyric. If you can fill in the blank correctly, you get another point.
Okay.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
Yeah, so it's kind of like the Barbenheimer game where it's fill in the blank, but also guess.
Never seen either of these. I've seen Hunchback, but not the one you're talking about.
Exactly.
When you said musical, I thought you meant the Disney music.
Yeah.
Like the
No, I mean it is the Disney.
It is a Disney musical.
Yeah,
but the movie.
And some of the lyrics carry over. Some of the lyrics carry over. Sweet. And in the event where neither of you fill in the blank correctly, I'll give the point to whoever has the funnier answer.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So here we go. Boom, the first one. So again, for 1 point, tell me if it's Les Mis or Hunchback.
Am I supposed to be saying something right now?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Not yet. For a second point, fill in the blank or the blanks. Here we go. The lyric is, have I fallen so far and is the hour so late that nothing remains but the blank of my blank?
Okay. Hold on.
This cadence reminds me of something.
Have I fallen so far and is the hour so late that nothing remains?
But now that you're repeating it, it makes me think that you're trying to mislead me. Fallen so far is the hour so late that nothing remains, but the must rhyme with late. I'm gonna guess that the last one is fate. Nothing remains but the.
Okay.
All right, so let's see.
I don't know what I haven't written anything down. Hold on. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Well, we'll start with Jeanette's answer. Jeanette.
Okay. I said Les Mis, and I said the bottom of my plate.
The bottom. Oh, that's funny. That's going to be hard to beat if you don't get it right, Alex. Okay, go. Alex?
But I don't, yeah, okay. I'm going to say Hunchback, end of my fate.
Sadly, it was Les Mis, and it was that nothing remains but the cry of my hate.
Okay.
Okay.
So Jeanette gets the funny point.
Very metal.
But you influenced me. I would have said Les Mis as well, but then you tricked me.
But then I sang the lyric properly?
Yes. That you shouldn't do that. Because
all right.
You're either giving away the answer or you're not. And I
feel like you're projecting onto me just living my life.
All right.
Next. Every day they shout and scold and go about their lives. Blank of the gift it is to be them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Every day they shout and scold and go about their lives.
No. This is Hunchback. It's
the gift it is to be them.
It's what's his face, Quasimodo singing about the people.
Every day they shout and scold and go about their lives.
Yeah.
Of the gift it is to be
Hunchback. Lives.
Not above them. But part of them.
What's the word though? It's not ignorant, right? Because that's too many syllables. Their lives, something, 2 syllables. Go about their lives. Baba, blind. No, that's 1 syllable.
Every day.
Go about their lives. Something of the gifted is to be them. Blinded. No, not blinded.
By the light.
It could be ignorant. It could be.
It would have to be.
Ignorant of the gifted is to be them.
The lives ignorant of the. Yeah, but I don't think that's what it is.
No, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't flow. Let's get Alex's answer first because Jeanette's probably right.
So Hunchback, but. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. Jeanette.
It's Hunchback and it's heedless.
Yeah, it's heedless.
Heedless
of the gift it is to be.
That's a 2-syllable word. That works there.
And it's kind of synonymous with ignorance, so you weren't wrong.
No.
You were so close.
Ignorance a 3-syllable word, isn't it?
No, but it's in the same neighborhood though. So he was on the right road.
Having no heed of, having no information.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Next, do you hear the people blank?
Okay.
Start with Jeanette.
Okay. It's Les Mis, and because it's Les Mis, I said they're dying.
It's a good guess, Alex.
Do you hear the people saying like this?
Correct.
Oh.
Do you hear the people?
I just assume they're starving or dying. That's all I know
you're not
about Les
wrong.
Mis.
You're not wrong at all.
They're
That
usually
is very
singing
correct.
about both.
Yeah, well, that's what they're singing about. They're singing
know
the song
bread.
of angry men.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know there's bread and people
It is the
dying.
music of the people who will not be slaves
Their
again.
numbers too,
Yeah.
2, 4, 6,
instead of
1.
names.
All Paris burns for blank.
Yeah, obvious. Well, actually, I guess that isn't obvious because they're both set in France. In France, but
A lot of stuff was burning during the revolution.
that's true. But are they set in? Is it set in Paris? It should be, but I don't know.
They go to Paris. I think the main barricade scenes take place in Paris, or maybe not. I don't know.
Okay, I'm good.
Okay, we'll start with Alex.
Hunchback, her. All of Paris burns for her.
Okay, Jeanette.
I said Hunchback, but I said you. I know the Paris burning song, but I don't remember.
Maybe
We're
it's
looking for Esmeralda.
Yeah, that's what I was.
Oh, okay.
And actually, it's not in the movie. It's an original.
It's not. I was
the
gonna say,
Act
I
One,
was
it's
like-
the Act One closer. It's called Esmeralda. All Paris
okay.
burns for Esmeralda. Da, da, da,
Okay, I was
da.
like singing the Paris burning song in my head, and I was like, oh.
You were on the right road.
Oh,
Like heedless. Next, the city goes to bed, and I can blank inside my head.
You should keep that to yourself.
Yeah.
Just some of these get really saucy.
Wank.
There it is.
Hold on, let's see.
It's either this or that. I'm gonna say it's this.
Or that.
It's all yeah. I'm gonna say it's one of those two.
What, like Hunchback or Les Mis? That is the game.
I know. I was gonna say yeah.
Okay, let's start with Jeanette.
I said it's Hunchback, and I said live inside my head.
Okay.
Hunchback, and I say dream, but my alternative would have been live.
Well, one of you got 1 point. It's live, but it's from Les Mis.
Oh,
Yes.
Okay.
great.
It's on my own. Alice, do you not know On My Own? Did you not have to hear a bunch of girls sing it in musical theater school ad nauseum?
No. I
Really?
think only like one girl sang it.
Oh,
That sounds obnoxious.
lucky you. It's a really good song, but only if it's sung by someone who can sing it.
Who can sing?
Yeah. Yes. Next. It's the day the blank in us gets released. It's the day we mock the prig and shock the priest.
Oh yeah.
Oh God. I gotta take out my headphones so I can think about it for a second. Hold on.
What do they use? What word do they use? Is it this? No, I got it. It's this. It's the Oh, okay, yeah, that was just the one blank. Got it.
Just the one blank.
Just the one blank.
Just the one blank.
Just the one blank.
Let's start with Alex.
Hunchback fool.
Yes.
Okay. Jeanette?
Yes. Hold on. I just got to that lyric in my head. I'm like, yes. God damn, I had to sing the whole song. Hunchback devil.
It is devil.
Oh God.
Yes.
Lame.
It's the day the devil in us.
I love this song so much, but I had to sing the whole freaking thing to get. I'm like,
From the beginning, from Come One, Come All.
well, like I started like the chorus for it, and I'm like, like when you say the ABCs, trying to remember where S is or something.
Fair. Next. Morning in Paris, the city awakes to the blank of blank.
Oh,
Well, if she gets it, then it's Hunchback.
I could be wrong, couldn't I?
Exactly.
Yeah, but you're pretty confident with that.
Misplaced confidence.
No. Rarely.
All right. Well, let's start with Alex.
Ringing of the bells. Of bells. Hunchback.
Okay. Jeanette?
I said Hunchback, and I said the tolling of the bells, but that's two words in the second blank, so I don't know.
I'll give you both a point for Hunchback. It was Morning in Paris, the city awakes to the bells of Notre Dame.
Oh, the bells of Notre Dame. Tolling of the bells. Yes.
To the
Okay.
bells.
Yes. To the bells of Notre Dame. Who is this man? What sort of blank is he?
Who is this man? What sort of blank is he? Is he a dog on the run? Is he
See, now you're trying to throw me off.
Yeah, now I know it's Les Mis because you're so confident.
that that was a misreading on your part. All right.
You both broke into song.
But you need the context.
I mean,
anything can become Les Mis because that's all Les Mis is. It's all that.
It's kind of like Morse code as a musical.
You can turn any phrase into a Les Mis phrase.
Morning in Paris, the city awakes to the bells of Notre Dame.
My name is Esmeralda. Okay.
All right, let's start with Alex.
What sort of devil?
Oh, is that your answer?
Yeah, Les Mis, I guess. Who is this man? What sort of demon? Devil? What sort of...
Pick one.
What sort of delinquent? Devil? What sort of...
Pick one.
Sure, devil. Why not? We've had one devil. Why not two? Why not two?
Well, I would never repeat an answer, but okay. Jeanette?
That's not true.
I said Les Mis and I said a-hole.
It is Les Mis and it is devil.
Ha!
I almost said that because that sounded very sensical, and then I said, nope, we already had devil.
Here I am throwing everyone off. Okay, second to last question. Come see me dance to the rhythm of the blank.
I know this.
I can guess this, but this is not in
you're
the animated one.
I tried to drop clues throughout the conversation for this one.
What does she say?
There's only... never mind. I'm not going to tell you.
Yeah.
There's only so many instruments that traveling gypsies had.
It could be to the rhythm.
Gave it away.
It could be to the rhythm of
what
like.
What am I giving away?
I wasn't even thinking of an instrument. The beat, the melody.
The rhythm of what? My feet?
The beat. The rhythm of the rhythm.
The rhythm of the goat.
Rhythm of the night.
Yeah, exactly.
The rhythm of the night. Rhythm is gonna get.
Although I may not know what it's.
I'm gonna get that tune in your head so you can't get it out.
Okay, let's start with Alex.
Oh God, wait,
He doesn't even have it.
Tambourine?
I know.
Is that the rhythm?
I don't know.
Hunchback tambourine.
Is that your final answer?
Yes.
Okay.
Good, because it's mine too.
And you're both right. Come see me dance to the rhythm of the tambourine. That's the song where she goes.
Shakira,
that's where she goes slow motion, and then all the guys are like, "Oh, she's mine now."
I did not like that song.
You should have.
Oh, is that when Clopin's? That's not. Is that in the animated one?
No, it's in the stage.
I was going to say because Clopin is singing about her when she's dancing. So.
Told you that when I saw it with you.
I know, and you were wrong then, and you're wrong now. It's not long. It's not boring. It's so good. Dude, the rhythm is so good. The staging is so good. It's a brilliant piece of perfectly crafted theater.
It's too long.
No, it's not. It's not long
needed
enough.
To be like
it's not long enough.
A couple minutes.
No, it is a couple. It's only like 2.5. It's a 2.5 minute song.
No, it's like that guy. It's like that with the Shakespeare movie filming we watched last time. The what was it when the one where Shakespeare's like a badass and he's flaunting himself. That when
something rotten.
Yeah, something rotten.
Yeah. Okay. No, we can agree there. But no, this is nothing like that. Okay. The final question. The final question of the regular round. Here we go. I will join these little schoolboys. They will wet themselves with blank.
With glee.
Gracious.
I guess this.
Be appropriate.
I'm going to try to guess correctly, which I assume.
Or be funny. Yeah. Let's start with Jeanette.
Kind of liked Alex's answer, so I guess that's what I'll say. Les Mis and Glee.
Les Mis and Glee. I thought you meant urine. You like to see.
No, I was going to say Hunchback and Fear, but I don't know.
Alex?
I'm going to say Les Mis and Fear.
Well, it's Les Mis and Blood.
Okay, yeah.
How do you wet yourself?
I will join these little
school heroes. They will wet themselves with blood. Watch them run amok. Catch them as they fall. Never you know your luck when there's a free fall.
One day more.
Yeah, it's one day more.
How do you wet? If you're peeing blood, shouldn't you?
No. It's because he's going to. He's infiltrating the revolutionaries by like joining them as a pretend revolutionary, even though he's on the other side. And he's like, I'm going to destroy them from the inside. They're all going to die and be like exploded with blood. I'm going to join these little schoolboys. They will wet themselves with blood.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Such a good song. Such a good Act 1 closer.
Well, that is a good point, though. Wetting yourself is often associated with urine. So.
True. All right, Jeanette, you have 14 points, and Alex, you have 11.
Who saw that coming?
I don't think any, like those exact numbers, probably nobody.
Yeah, no. Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
All right. Are we all in? I'm all in.
Okay. Alex, are you all in?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, good. So I had a bonus question, but I think we gave it away too much during the game. So I'm trying to think of how to rephrase it.
Is it because it's the same answer again?
No. Well, yes. Okay. Oh, well, no. Okay, no. This is
blood.
Okay,
no.
You're blood.
What was this character?
All right, so you can either double or triple your points. Here we go. We'll do it this way.
Okay.
We'll do it this way.
A lot of points.
Yes. So my original question was going to be, which other Universal monster did the guy who played Hunchback also play? But I think we discussed that too liberally. So I'm going to change the question to this. Who are the two actors that played the Phantom of the Opera in the Universal Monsters franchise? Give me their names. If you give me one name, you double your points. If you give me both of their names, you triple your points. And I did, in fact, say the other guy's name at one point.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
No, and I would have known regardless.
And
so
well,
here we go.
Alex, if it helps you, his name is part of a lyric in the first song of Rocky Horror.
It's also a lyric in a Lords of Acid song. But yes,
there you go.
Rocky Horror. Rocky Horror would be the. Oh, hey.
Yes.
Janet.
Yes, I am Jen. No.
Damn it.
I have been. I'm not.
I wanted to be
Janet?
Brad. It never happened.
We'll talk about it. Matt knows.
Yeah, no, I can't.
Let's start with Alex.
Think of the name of the Hunchback that you guys have been repeating nonstop. Les.
Oh, he doesn't know the first name. Much
Les Claudy. No.
Sound it out.
It's not Gordon. Les. Not even Les. Probably. It's like Lay something. Lay Clay. Lay
Clay.
Lay Clap. No.
Legolas.
And then the other guy's like Claudius or something like that. Like
Claudius. It's like a vampire.
Yeah, the vampire. Yeah. Claudius.
Like Hamlet's uncle.
Yeah, Klaus. Yeah. Clalabal and Lays Clapton.
Okay, let's Jeanette.
It's Lon Chaney and Claude Rains.
There
Lon
we
Chaney
go.
And Claude. I told you it was a Claude.
So Jeanette wins with, I think, 42 points, and Alex
42.
has 0.
Yay!
Yay! Yay! Congratulations!
Am I king of the castle now?
Yes, you're king of the haunted castle.
Yay!
You're king of Notre Dame.
Have you seen
Even
that
better.
yet, BT Dubs?
What?
Haunted Mansion film?
Oh,
Of
yes.
course. What? What
Well,
kind of
I
question is
just-
that?
Took
I just didn't
offense.
hear anything about it. I feel like you should have been a lot more excited and posting on social media and stuff.
I saw it when I was in the midst of moving and doing a play. I had no time for anything else. That's why this is the first show back in like 3 months.
I mean, time for wax museums.
That's true, but that was for a video, which will be on the channel sooner rather than later. Yay! And it might, as I told Alex, it might be the video that gets my channel demonetized, unless I edit very carefully around certain things that were said and done with those wax figures. But stay tuned for that. But yeah, I saw Haunted Mansion actually with Kristen Zaza, who's going to be joining us next week for our discussion of Dracula, because she's a giant vampire expert.
So much.
Yes, I know, and she loves vampires. So I feel I'm excited to talk vampires with her.
Oh, you're gonna have two very nerdy vampire girls on here. Yay!
And Alex and I will just watch. It'll be great.
I mean, I like vampires too.
Yeah. They used to scare me a lot, but I'm excited to talk about Dracula because I feel like I haven't seen the what's his face? What's his name? What's the actor's name?
The guy who's like, I want.
Which one are we watching?
Like the original one, the Bella. I haven't seen the Bella Lugosi one.
I was gonna say
in a
there's
long
two
time.
very old ones. There's Bella, and then there's another one with somebody well known, and I'm horrible because I can't remember his name.
Well, like there's the Bella one, then there's Nosferatu, but there's also the little known Spanish Dracula, which I think is just so interesting that it exists.
Dracula.
And it exists as a
Espanol.
special feature on this Blu-ray set. And what happened with the Spanish Dracula is that they were making the American Dracula simultaneous with the Spanish one. So they were using the same sets, the same camera setups. It's virtually the exact same movie, but with different actors. And because they were shooting the Spanish Dracula movie at night, well, first off, it's kind of creepy because it's actually at night. But also they had a sense basically from the trial run of shooting for the American version where they knew how to make the movie slightly better, or like how to do better camera angles. So the Spanish Dracula film is a lot better.
Yeah, it's Boris Karloff. It's a famous name. I couldn't remember. I kept wanting to say.
When was he?
Burl
Was it
Ives,
Blood for
but that's
Dracula? That's not.
No, Boris Karloff did it after, I believe. I think he did it after Bela Lugosi. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, no, Bela Lugosi's the classic Dracula.
But I think Boris Karloff did it after him. And I almost want to say they talk about it in Ed Wood.
Well, Lugosi talks about Karloff and how much he hates him in it.
Yeah,
like,
and I think
Karloff!
That might be why, because he did the role after. I think that's why. I think that's the case.
Well,
but yes, I'm excited for Dracula.
So am I. We'll dig into it next week. Dracula's a movie, much like original Universal Frankenstein, where the movie's never as good as I want it to be or remember it being. So, yeah, we'll discuss that next week. Anyway, closing thoughts on Hunchback? Anyone?
Better than expected, and if you're into horror movies and film history, you should see it.
Yeah, I think even like just noticing even things like how like much detail was in each frame and stuff, like how much cameras back then still were taking in terms of just like light information and how the resolution, right? Like it's not like it was you can watch
like watching the Barbie movie.
Well, you can watch you can watch a YouTube video at like 360p or whatever, and it's like very fuzzy,
right?
And kind of it's easy to kind of, and you can watch VHS tapes and even DVDs, right? And they can be kind of very visually just distorted and fuzzy and unclear, and to kind of see that there are ancient, for to use the inappropriate term, movies that really like they looked good, like they still look good, like they're not 4K, but they look fine. I watched it on a 4K screen and it looked good,
easily watchable, not what am I watching?
Just imagine how good it would be if we still had the 35 prints. Like all that detail was just coming from 16 mil. If we had like 35 is 35, like it would probably be comparable to what we have now if you were able to get your hand on the original negative.
With remastering and everything,
So sadly we can't because it's gone. So thank you, Universal, for burning all those beautiful film prints like they were citizens of Paris at the foot of Notre Dame trying to siege the cathedral. Anyway, with that, time to sign off. Tell everyone all the things. We know the drill now. There we go.
Hello. So I am Tinker J, Jeanette.
Yeah,
you can find me on We Like Theme Parks. New episodes drop every Thursday. And you can find me here on Teacup for One. And you can find me on Instagram at TinkerJ787.
Woo! Thank you, Jeanette.
Bye.
It's me, Alex. T-Top.
I thought you were doing the Maureen thing. The gotcha. Find a way
to drink the milk over the moon.
Moo with me. Yeah.
Moo. Anyway, I'll be here. Looking forward to next week Dracula. Still haven't been discovered, strangely enough. Like I started my debut here at Teacup for One. I put the call out, put the challenge out, like find me if you dare, and no stalkers yet, no strange messages or mailbox boxes mailed.
We can take. Do you want me to read your phone number out to everybody?
No, that's the whole point. You're not supposed to dox me. You're
right.
It's like
they're supposed to find
they're supposed to be people who are passionate enough about meeting their idol, that they they put in the effort, right? They do the investigative thing, right? So
maybe, well, we have 3 more weeks of this marathon. Maybe that'll do it.
Hopefully. It's been kind of depressing.
And if you're watching this channel, my name is Matt and I have 2 degrees. This is Teacup for One. Thank you so much for joining us. Join us next week, same channel, same time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we will be discussing Universal's Dracula, a much more conventional monster movie where it's very obvious, cut and dry who the monster is and why he is such a monster. So join us next week. Vampires, blood-sucking, Bela Lugosi, Matt, 2 degrees, Teacup for One. Thank you, friends. Mwah. It's good to be back. How do you end this?